Chicago's infamous winters are marked by a number of things. It's the time of year when so much snow and ice is accumulated on the sidewalks that simple tasks like walking down the street or getting on or off of a bus can become challenging. It's the time of year when the hot chocolate line at a Bears game can take more than 30 minutes. But one thing that I love about winters in Chicago is all of the lights and festive decorations that go up around the city for the holidays. A few years back, I made a video about the CTA's famous holiday train. While the CTA's train is probably the most recognizable to the general public, the concept is not unique to the CTA. Numerous other railroads around the continent employ such traditions. And another one of those railroads, right here in Chicago, is Metra. So this year, I got the chance to go out and ride Metra's holiday train. Because Metra, as a mainline railroad, is operated very differently from the CTA, a rapid transit agency, and serves a predominantly different set of passengers, their holiday train is operated differently as well. While the CTA runs their holiday train in regular service almost every day of the week at a variety of times, Metra's train is operated more as a special attraction. The holiday train is an extra, operating outside of the regular timetable and making only specific stops. The train makes just 6 round trips across 3 Saturdays in December. I imagine the nature of the schedule has something to do with the fact that running extra trains requires Metra to coordinate with BNSF, Union Pacific, and CPKC railroads who control a number of the lines that they operate on. Metra has no weekend slots on the North Central or Southwest services, or the Heritage Corridor, which operate on tracks owned by Norfolk Southern and Canadian National Railroads. In 2025, the Metra Holiday Train made 1 round trip on the BNSF line and 1 round trip on the Milwaukee District West on Saturday, December 6th, 1 round trip each on the Union Pacific Northwest line, the Rock Island District, and the Metra Electric District on Saturday, December 13th, and 1 additional round trip on the Metra Electric District on Saturday, December 20th. Special tickets are required for each trip on the holiday train. Tickets can be purchased online at shop.metra.com. They go on sale in late November and typically sell out very fast. I purchased mine within minutes of the start of sale. I didn't check the site again until a day or 2 later, but needless to say, they were sold out by then. I have heard that they typically sell out even within the first hour. Tickets cost $10 each and are good for the entire round trip for which they are purchased, although passengers can board or alight at any of the scheduled stops that they choose. Fare zones are irrelevant to trips made on the holiday train. Since a majority of Metra riders are those who live in the suburbs and use Metra to commute to the city, each run of the holiday train begins in the suburbs, runs into downtown, and returns to its starting point after a layover, during which riders are free to enjoy the city and all that it has to offer this time of year. The downside of this model is that passengers who live in Chicago itself, like me, have to either skip the entire inbound trip or make a separate trip out to the suburbs just to start their ride, which is what I did. My Metra holiday train ride was on the Milwaukee District West, and my day began a little bit after 8 o'clock in the morning at Chicago's Union Station. I made my way through the Great Hall, stopping to admire the iconic Union Station Christmas tree, and then headed down to the Northern Concourse to track number 11 to catch Milwaukee District West, train number 2703, which departs Chicago at 8:30, on its way to Elgin, Illinois. After about 45 minutes on board, I arrived in the village of Roselle, Illinois, where I got off to intercept the holiday train as it made its way back into town. The station in Roselle is a pretty decent one. The building contains 2 heated waiting rooms and restrooms. It's also one of only 8 stations in the Milwaukee District West outside of Chicago to have ticket machines, providing an option for passengers to buy physical tickets for their trains. The station building is also open on weekends, which definitely cannot be said for many other Metra stations. Like most Metra stations, though, it is oriented toward the residents of the municipality it serves. Onward travel options from Roselle Station are non-existent. Numerous park and ride lots surround the building and are the method of choice for regular users of the station. Downtown Roselle, also fairly non-existent, although there is a Walgreens, a hardware store, and a McDonald's within walking distance of the station. The latter of these I decided to pay a visit to. With greasy sustenance in hand, it was time to head back over to the metro station to catch the holiday train. Soon enough, it was a few minutes before 10 o'clock, and I was back on the platform as the holiday train approached. As you can tell from this footage, the event is quite popular. A vast majority of the holiday train's riders were families, particularly those with young children, but people of all ages were enjoying the fun, including myself. On board, the train's cars have been decked out with festive decorations, so while still recognizable as normal Metro train cars, the interior also looks nothing like your typical Metro train. That's something that I personally find very interesting about riding the trains, such as Metra and CTA's holiday trains. It's so interesting to see the familiar sights and sounds of a train that I'm used to riding right next to all the colorful decorations. The cab car, which leads the train for the inbound trip, as well as the locomotive, are also adorned in colorful lights on their exteriors. This particular train on the Milwaukee District West consisted of 6 of Metra's gallery passenger cars, pushed by an SD79 Mach diesel-electric locomotive, number 500, which also wears an RTA heritage livery. Each of the gallery cars was decorated with a slightly different theme, the theme of each car being symbolized in the decorations on the end of each respective car. The car closest to the locomotive was themed for the Grinch. The next car was centered around the theme of a winter wonderland. And the third car was themed for Charlie Brown's Christmas from Peanuts. The fourth car was a bit harder to figure out. It was definitely Christmas themed, but it seemed like it was a bit more generic. There was lots of red and white with candy cane type decorations, so perhaps that's all they were going for with this car. The final 2 cars in the train, while definitely decorated for Christmas, also had secondary themes that were not directly Christmas related. The first of these was decorated with red, white, and blue colors, American flags, and with the seals of various branches of the U.S. military. The final car on the train, the cab car, at the opposite end from the locomotive, was decorated for Operation Lifesaver, a railroad safety campaign with an emphasis on protecting pedestrians and motorists from the hazards of grade-level railways and crossings. There's not a bad seat in the house, as passengers are able to take in the elaborate decorations, listen to the festive music being played over the train's PA system, and get candy and other treats distributed by staff and volunteers on the train. The aisles of the train can get quite busy, with the regular train crew as well as entertainers reading Christmas-themed stories for young children, characters such as Santa and the Grinch walking around and handing out goodies, and the occasional rogue YouTuber walking up and down the train trying to figure out the decoration patterns in each car. As I alluded to earlier, the Metra holiday train makes stops only at select stations along the line. On the Milwaukee District West, the train began at Big Timber Road Station in Elgin, Illinois, a station otherwise only served on weekdays, and made an additional stop at Bartlett before arriving at Roselle, where I boarded. After leaving Roselle, the train made stops in Bensonville and River Grove before entering the city and making one additional stop at Galewood. By 10:48 a.m., we had made it back to Union Station. For the Milwaukee District West, the layover in Chicago is a little less than 90 minutes, although this does vary from line to line, with the layover typically being somewhere between 1 and 2 hours. For me, though, it was just enough time to get over to Chicago's famous Christkindlemarket. Heading into the station concourse, I made my way through the Metra ticketing area, the Amtrak baggage area, and down to the south end of the station, where the exit to the transit center is located. From Stop E in the center bay of the transit center, I caught the number 151 Sheridan bus, which took me over the Jackson Boulevard Bridge and then up Dearborn Street. I got off at Dearborn and Madison, at which point I was just a short walk from Daley Plaza, where the market is hosted. Now, you may have heard about the Christkindlemarket in the news a lot this year, due to the steep capacity restrictions that the city has placed on Daley Plaza for the event this year. This has led to reports of increasingly long lines for the event. This had me a bit nervous as to whether or not I'd be able to get in and out of the market within the relatively short layover that I had. And yes, when I arrived, lines were stretching around the block in both directions. It was rather formidable, and I had begun to think that this may not have been such a good idea, and I probably wasn't going to be able to get it done in the amount of time that I had. Still, I figured I'd at least get in line and see how far I got. I was actually rather surprised by the speed of the line, however. I arrived at Daley Plaza around 11:15 a.m., It took a little bit for me to actually find the end of the line and then join it, but once I did, it moved rather fast, and I was walking in the market entrance just a few minutes after 11:30. But the reason for the line was quite apparent. The market was very crowded, and it was rather hard to move as well. By this time, I had not that long before I knew I needed to be on my way back to the station if I was to catch the holiday train headed outbound again. So, here's a quick summary of what happened during my short time at the market. I entered into a sea of crowds, did my best to navigate to the one stand that I knew I wanted to visit, waited in line for a few minutes, decided to pull out the cash I would need for my purchase ahead of time to save some time, discovered that I did not have nearly as much cash on me as I thought, had to make a trip over to the ATM of shame, which had a minimum $20 withdrawal, and also, of course, came with a $4.50 service fee, then fought my way back through the crowd over to the stand, waited in line a little bit longer, and was finally able to successfully make my purchase. With my Glühwein secured, it was now a mad dash back through the streets of Chicago, trying, with only some success, to avoid spilling hot grape juice on my hands. I made my way as fast as I reasonably could down to the bus stop at Madison and LaSalle Streets, where I actually had a few minutes to spare to finish my hot drink before my bus arrived. I boarded the number 60 Blue Island and 26th bus, which took me back over the river on the Madison Street Bridge and then south again to Clinton and Jackson, just across from Union Station. Now moving quickly to make sure I would catch the train, I didn't have much time to stop and appreciate the tree, so I was thankful that I had taken the time to do that in the morning. Soon I was back down in the North Concourse, headed to track number 5 where the holiday train had arrived, to hop back on board before its departure at 12:15. The mood had shifted some on the return trip headed back towards Elgin. As I mentioned, the primary riders of the holiday train are families with young children who live in the suburbs and ride the train to enjoy a fun day in the big city. Some families chose to stay in the city longer and ride a regular train on their return trip, and most of those who do ride the holiday train on its return trip are those who are worn out from the busy day. So the train was a fair bit quieter as it left Chicago. Due to the Milwaukee district having an every 2-hour schedule on Saturday afternoons, and not wanting to get stuck waiting a long time for my train back into town, I opted to get off at the first scheduled stop out of Union Station, which was Galewood, a fairly primitive station still within the city limits on Narragansett Avenue near Cortlandt Street. A little over 10 minutes later, my inbound train, number 2714, arrived. I boarded and was on my way back into Chicago. And that was my experience on the Metra holiday train. All told, I quite enjoyed it. If you or someone you know would enjoy this experience for next year, be sure to head over to Metra's holiday train page, which I will link in the description, around November next year to see the schedules and when tickets will go on sale. Remember, they do sell out very fast. You can also check out my video on the CTA's holiday train, if that's something you'd like to try out as well. Thanks for joining me on this trip. I'll see you next time, and have a Merry Christmas.